This well must be a shrine. It's probably must be very ancient. Fuente la Ribera. Right, okay, so I just left the village that I was in, left the albergue, because a huge truck rolled up right in front of the albergue, and apparently it's stuffed full with sound equipment and a very real heavy metal band that's going to start playing at 12:30. And after some investigations, we found out that it will only be finishing at 6 o'clock in the morning. So there we go, walking through nice peaceful countryside. Right, I can hear behind me noises of them setting up the sound equipment, and I'm very happy to be on my way. I'll find a place outside to sleep. I was remembering many years ago when God called us to go to India. We were staying at a friend's house close to Valhalla Airport, and I used to walk around there, and it had huge walls, maybe about 6.5 feet high, cement walls around the whole place. And I used to look at those walls and say, Lord, I can jump over a wall. I can run through a troop. Yeah, that's a quotation from one of David's Psalms. And the idea was that we were praying, that we could get to India. Of course, it was very difficult at that time for South Africans to get passports to go to India. So anyway, after a while, I thought to myself, well, maybe I could go up to Zambia, since I was born there, and I could apply for a passport, so that because Dorothea and the children don't have problems. They've got German passports. So anyway, I got out onto the road and I hitchhiked. I hitchhiked all the way up to, through the Western Transvaal, and then up into Botswana. I went all the way up through Botswana, hitchhiking all the way, and came to a place called Natta. Francistown. Remember standing the whole night. Then in Natta, stood there for 2 days, an entire day, then right throughout the whole night. And early in the morning, I was so despondent. I just thought, oh my God, man, you Lord, please, I really need, I just felt ready to give up, and I actually crossed the road. I crossed the road onto the other side of the road, to start hitchhiking back. I mean, I'd been standing for 24 hours, and everybody was just driving past, So I crossed over the road. As I crossed over to the other side of the road, I saw this big Pantechnicon truck coming along, and I thought, okay, well, let me just try once more, and I went across, and I put my thumb out, and this guy stopped. He stopped, and so I get into the vehicle, and then I start talking, and he asked me where I'm going, what am I doing, and then I said to him, something about wanting to go to India, and then he said to me, I'm a Christian pastor. It turned out that he was a truck driver, kind of in his spare time, but his main vocation was preaching the gospel. So he was so encouraging, and I traveled with him miles way up. Anyway, yeah, so that was just an incredible experience. I just saw God's hand at that time. He took me to the end of myself, right, and then all of a sudden he made a way. Anyway, that wasn't the end. Then I crossed into Zambia. Actually, when I arrived at the airport, I arrived at the border. I came through Kazangula. At that time, now they've got this incredible bridge that's been built by the Chinese. But at that time, you had to go over on like a little ferry thing. The cars would go, and I wasn't in the car, so I just stood there, right, and I crossed over. I went through Botswana customs, And then I crossed over into Zambia, and the Zambian officials, they said to me, "So what are you doing?" And I said to them, "I'm coming here to, I need to go and do some business in Lusaka." And they said, "How much money have you got?" And I had like, 20 rand, I think, something like that. It was barely enough just to keep me alive, but I could have survived. And they just said, "No, you can't go into the country on this amount of money." And I was like, "No, but God will provide for me. Aren't you guys Christians?" They were like, "Yes, we are Christians, but sorry, you're going to have to go back." So they put me in jail. So it was like this jail, it looked like it was like rotting from the inside out. It hadn't been cleaned. The windows were all broken. It was just a complete mess. Anyway, I survived that, and I went back, crossed over again onto the other side. And when I crossed over to the other side, right, all of a sudden I saw this bakkie come past me, flying past me with these two white guys in it. So anyway, came to the Botswana police, and they were very perturbed, but they didn't have a choice, they couldn't send me, I couldn't carry on into Zambia, so they let me out. So then as I came outside, there were these two guys, these South Africans, and they'd been up into Zambia. So they said, "Oh, where are you going?" So I said, "I'm going to Pretoria." And they said, "Oh, well, we're going to be driving straight right past Pretoria, jump in." So I got a lift all the way back from the Zambian border all the way to Pretoria. Anyway, it wasn't so simple as what one would think, because I sat in there and I started sharing the gospel with these two guys. And it turned out that both of them, they'd been involved with special forces, and the one guy had been raised up right up to being a commander in the special forces. And the other guy, right, they were both, born in Zambia like I was, and it turned out that they were, the other guy had been, they told me these fascinating stories, but anyway, it was all about spying and all sorts of stuff. And we were in the middle of the conversation, and I was talking to them about the Lord. And all of a sudden, there was this cow, right? We were traveling at about 150 k's an hour. And all of a sudden, we hit this cow, and the cow just flew up. It was like in slow motion. It flew up, and it smashed the windscreen completely. And fortunately, it didn't come through into the cab. So the three of us were sitting next to each other in the front cab. And then, we got out, and it was totaled. It was just completely wrecked. So we managed to get a lift into the next town, which was maybe 30 or 40 kilometers away. And these guys rented a car and then went back and put on a rope onto this vehicle. And then, they asked me if I would sit in the broken vehicle behind, with a rope that was maybe, I don't know, about 20 meters long. And they drove like furiously all the way back, and we would take turns. I didn't spend all the time driving. Then the other brother would take turns with me, but ended up going all the way back. Right, so when I arrived back, my mother asked me what happened, so I told her. She said, no, you need to, we need to just help you out here, because I didn't actually ask any help from anybody. So she gave me some money. So I thought, okay, here I go. Anyway, I went all the way back up, crossed over. This time I had enough money. And then I caught the bus to Lusaka, right? Anyway, long story, shortened a bit. They wouldn't give me a passport. They said, listen, I can if I renounce my South African citizenship, which means it would be a difficulty even get back into South Africa. So anyway, I gave up on that, right, and carried on. Went all the way back south and just kept praying. And then the most amazing thing happened. South Africa was invited, the South African cricket team was invited to India to play against India. And this was the first time South Africa had had any sporting engagements at all. And when I saw that, I saw those South Africans there on the playing field in India, I was just saying, God, you have answered my prayers, You've opened the doors for the South Africans to go and play in India because this is the right moment. And sure enough, shortly after that, I went and I applied for a visa. No problem. They gave it to me. And, that's how we ended up I ended up going to India the first time. Later on, I came back and then we went over as a family. That's another story. That's when we went up through Africa by bicycle. But anyway, all of those things were just memories. And as I'm walking along here, I'm just reminded of how faithful God is, how faithful the Lord is. How faithful are you, Lord? Yeah, when we come to the end of ourselves, when we come to a point where we think, well, God has abandoned us and we're completely alone. Well, sometimes God takes us to those places so that we can learn faith and that we can learn that He is there, the everlasting Father, the rock, the Prince of Peace, the everlasting arms that hold us. And so just want to encourage you all, if you're going through a difficult time, there is a time for everything. All things come to an end. And God will bring us into a place of victory. We just need to persevere. Okay, bye then.